Live from our studios somewhere in cyberspace, it's Beats and Eats, a happy hour for your mind. The virtual lounge is open, so come inside, grab a stool and your drink of choice. And now, here are your hosts, Ray and Nick Gelso.
Welcome, everybody, to the virtual lounge. Ray, Nick Gelso. Thank you, bartender Scott Mitchell. It's Beats and Eats, a happy hour for the mind, and Nick and I want to thank all of you. I mean it from the bottom of my heart, all of you who have gone to Apple, iTunes, and rated and reviewed the show. Your words have meant so much to both of us, and we're pleased you like the show, and we're continuing on with the show. It's been a big launch on iTunes of the Beats and Eats network, and beatsandeats.net is our website. We hope you frequent it often. And Nick, I'm going to bring you in right away. We're just going to kick back today and just talk things pop culture. No guest on this show, just you and I talking about what we've got going on with Beats and Eats and just some other topics as well.
I'm just glad if they didn't like us, they lied
sure
at least and said they did.
Yeah.
We did get a resounding amount of reviews and ratings in just 2 days on iTunes. And again, thanks to CLNSradio.com for renting to us, real estate to us during the opening months of this podcast. But it's exciting to get out on our own and not clog up their airspace anymore. And, yeah, man, I mean, this is great.
If you're a fan of this show, we've got some other big things in the works, so you'll want to stay tuned for details in the coming weeks. But some big names involved, and we're just very excited about it and happy that you've joined the virtual lounge and you've enjoyed what you've heard from Nick and myself, and you'll continue to do so. And Nick, I didn't really know what we expected when we started this show. I really didn't. And it's just been a hell of a lot of fun. I've had a hell of a lot of fun with you just talking pretty much about anything. I think we've touched on every topic possible when it comes to the world of entertainment, and then some other topics as well since we've started this show. Nothing's been really off limits. No,
we've had great calls from guys like Hanjay and comedian Ramsey, and of course last week's big topic was Debbie Dobbs.
Yeah, Pam Dauber. Poor Pam Dauber.
Have you reached out to Pam Dauber yet?
I have not reached out to Pam Dauber yet. I think she's busy being married to Mark Harmon, and I don't think she's done any acting since then. But I still think she'd be a blast to be on the show. You know, I'm kind of strange that way, Nick. You were talking about Tom Hanks, and we're actually going to talk about Tom Hanks on the show coming up. But Tom Hanks, you were talking to me about him last week, and I said, hey, let's get Peter Scolari on the show. And you're like, what? Peter Scolari, yeah, the sidekick to Tom Hanks in, of course, Bosom Buddies, a classic from TV of era gone by.
It's crazy. Tom Hanks got his start in drag.
He did. And of course, Dan Aykroyd's wife, Donna Dixon, was on that show as well. The show was very funny. And looking back, I can't remember the exact dates of Bosom Buddies. What, late 70s maybe? Early 80s?
Early 80s, yeah, I remember.
And guys still dressing up as women was considered funny.
Yeah, now it's considered in places like New York, it's considered commonplace, I guess.
So there's really no punchline involved. But Peter Scolari, I'd love to have him on as a guest, and he's been in some of Tom Hanks' other films in bit parts. He's a very talented actor himself. So just kind of funny that the joke's always on me. You want the big stars, and I'm like more interested in the quirky sidekicks.
Yeah. The people that stopped working before I was born.
Exactly.
Hey, but listen, it's been good. I mean, one of the ratings, Adrian Zemed got a big shout-out on iTunes on one of our ratings, which I thought that was interesting. I had no clue who he was. I just knew after you said T.J. Hooker, William Shatner.
It's funny, too, Nick, after that show, I had more people reach out to me on Facebook about Adrian Zemed. And I think it's because if you think about the films he was in, like we mentioned Tom Hanks, right? He was in Bachelor Party, which is a cult classic. People who are fans of Hanks love that film because the Hanks of today really bears no resemblance at all to the Tom Hanks that was in Bachelor Party. You know, the
Or Mermaid. What was that movie
Splash.
with Mermaid? Splash.
Yeah.
Great movie. John Candy.
With Ron Howard as directing, and how Ron Howard's come a long way since the movie Splash. But, Hanks is a much different actor now than he was back then. But Zemed was in that, and Zemed was also in Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer. And
who is that picture of Michelle Pfeiffer you posted in the Beats and Eats group? Was it Michelle Pfeiffer or Sharon
That was
Stone?
Sharon Stone.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I do have
gorgeous.
I do have a picture of Michelle Pfeiffer that she's just she was just beautiful. Remember her in Scarface? Oh,
sure. And then she was in that terrible movie with what was it? But she was a teacher with the gangs. What was the name of that
Dangerous
movie?
Minds.
Dangerous Minds. Great soundtrack though. Great theme song.
Let's get Coolio on the show.
Coolio. I bet we could get him.
I bet we could do.
Not so.
Do you remember Weird Al Yankovic, who does the parodies of all the songs? He did Coolio's song in Dangerous Mind was Gangster's Paradise. So Weird Al went out and did a parody called Amish Paradise. Yep. I don't Coolio appreciated that, as I recall.
No, I really
classic stuff. He's done so many great songs, and that would.
The worst thing you could do as somebody he makes fun of is get mad at him, because he's going to do it all the more. He's going to make a fool out of you.
He did Madonna's Like a Surgeon, I remember.
Yeah, he did.
He did from Michael Jackson. I guess Michael Jackson loved it, and of course I'm a huge fan of Eye of the Tiger, which gets played at all sorts of stadiums across the nation every day. I love that song. It's from Rocky. You gotta love it. But he did a parody of it it's the Rye the Kaiser, a bread parody on the song. So very creative guy. But getting back to what we were talking about, Zemed. So think about it. He was in Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer, and that movie, as he said, has run it more than the original Grease because it's a cleaner movie, which I hadn't even thought of when we had him on the show. And then he's in the Tom Hanks film Bachelor Party, and then everybody watches T.J. Hooker, so he's in all these programs, right? We all watch T.J. Hooker.
Well, I don't know that everybody does. Maybe our age group does. Your age group does.
My mom's age group did, Nick. I was busy dating. I watched T.J. Hooker in syndication is one.
Nothing was better than watching William Shatner in the girdle jump over the hood of the car.
Well, the funny thing about the interesting interview we did with Zemed was the fact that he's the one who actually got hurt, and he was the athlete.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. I mean, and Shatner probably never let him live it down.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I wonder what he was like back then. I mean, you hear here we are on
That's
Shatner
okay.
again. Have a drink. You hear a lot about how he is to work with now, as he's fun, But I think he is like really Denny Crane.
I think so. I picture him that way. I picture him that way.
And that show was so
Boston
good.
Legal Spader is terrific.
And so
they were a great duo, and so many celebrities came through that show too, as well. And that show had a very, very nice life. 6, 7 seasons? I'd have to look that up. I'm not positive, but it had a nice run.
It did, and I don't think it ever got silly. I mean, I watched every episode I've got to stop saying I'm not into episodic television, because I guess
you know more about episodic television than you think, because you say I don't watch episodic television, and the next thing you know, you're spouting out the trivial as well, my friend.
Yeah, but it's like meaningless trivia that nobody really needs to know.
That's why it's trivia.
Or cares about. I guess you're right.
That's why it's trivia. But getting back to Zemed and the iTunes, that episode has done real well, and more people have reached out to me about that particular episode than anyone we've done. To think Kira Reed, Lydia Cornell, Eddie Money, and here Zemed is raking in the listens. He has a big fan base. He does have a big fan base, and I think it's because he's done a lot of work. His family's also, as we know, is connected in the show business industry too. His wife sings backup for Meatloaf.
Now, does she sing backup, or does she sing the female parts?
That's a good
Meatloaf
question.
Songs?
That's something I don't know, and I'll look that up.
I got the impression she sings the female parts of Meatloaf songs, the way he was talking. He was a great interview.
He was.
Oh, Alan Hunter was a great
Alan Hunter, which we just got followed, I don't know if you noticed, on Twitter by Nina Blackwood, of course, who was one of the original VJs on MTV, late night VJ, the sexy Nina Blackwood, overnight.
Twitter?
Yeah, she followed us on Twitter. So
We on Twitter?
We are on Twitter at Beat, the word Beat, the letter N, and Eats. So Beat and Eats, and we're developing a following by the day. And that's nice. And it's nice that we can tweet and people respond. So we're developing that as well. But Nina Blackwood, probably, I think at the time, may have been the most popular VJ on MTV. And I'd like to get her on the show. I know we talked to Alan about the book that they all collaborated on, but we could talk to Nina, not necessarily about the book, but just what it was like for her in the early days of MTV. Because she was an actress, Nick, prior to going to MTV. She did some films, and then of course after that, I think that a lot of the VJs got stereotyped as VJs and weren't able to do the work that they wanted to do. Whereas with Alan, though, he was more into the production side of things and having his production company and making films, so he was able to go on and do exactly what he wanted to do with his life. But yeah, Alan was great. The stories he told, I love the story about Ozzy Osbourne. It's stuck in my mind ever since we've done the interview. Do you imagine Ozzy in some state of mind and Sharon Osbourne making some excuse for him? Could you imagine interviewing him, asking him a question and you couldn't understand his answer and having to pretend like you knew the answer to the question you asked?
And all about he didn't want to interview Madonna. Who's Madonna?
Yeah, who's Madonna? I don't want to do. Who is this person?
Imagine being in that position. Speaking of Osborne, Kelly Osbourne just got $1 million manicure.
$1 million manicure? Where did you see that at?
It's on E right now.
$1 million what do you do? What do you get done to yourself? That's like plastic surgery pricing there.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
Yeah, it is stupid. It's disposable. But she's talk about transformation. Did you ever watch the Osbourne show?
Oh,
yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was very entertaining. And the transformation that Jack and Kelly have made is quite amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, Jack went through his rehab, and I think he's sober now, and Kelly had her issues, especially with weight. And the fact that she's been able to maintain that's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for as whacked out as they are, they're a great family. It was a great show to watch. The Osbournes. I wish it was still on.
I do too. I'd like to see what they're doing now. Although Sharon, I think
Sharon's everywhere.
Yeah, Sharon is everywhere. Is she on that show on CBS? I don't watch women's shows during the daytime, just because I'm not home. Well, I'm not home. Yeah, there you go. What is it called? It's kind of like because The View. Everybody knows The View because of the people involved, and it was always a soap opera on The View when Barbara Walters was on there and all the flashing celebrities. But CBS, I think CBS has a show similar to that.
I barely ever watch CBS.
Really? And I think they're the number one network.
I watch NBC.
Yeah. By the way, have you watched, yet you probably haven't because I know you've been busy, have you watched getting back to Spader, dude, you got to watch The Blacklist.
I know I got to start DVRing it, or at least going and watching it on demand, because I think he's a great actor. We talked about him in Boston Legal, and it's a show that I think I would really like. I might start that today.
You kind of get the gist of what it's about. He's not, I guess, kind of like a Hannibal Lecter character without being a cannibal, if you will. He's just a wanted criminal that's helping out the FBI take down the people on the blacklist, the most wanted criminals in the world. It's pretty fascinating. And he does a great job.
I'm still in my second go-round of Breaking Bad.
Are you really?
Yeah, man, and I'm glad I watched it twice because, when you binge watch, something I've learned with this show, you're always like, one more, and it's getting late. All right, one more. And I'm not a late-night guy.
I do know that.
And, I'd find myself midnight, one more. And I'd fall asleep during the last one. And Netflix after it goes, it'll continue to play. So in other words, it'll go right to the next episode. So, and I think that might be a setting I should change, but I realized I missed like 3 or 4 episodes.
Really?
Because I slept through them and it just kept going. So I'm catching things that I missed the first time around, and it's certainly not boring the second time around. It's really good. And speaking of Breaking Bad and Aaron Paul, we have the producer of Smash